Hey guys, Girl About Library, and I am here for my very first wrap-up and TBR. In the month of April, I read 4 books. We Were the Lucky Ones by Georgia Hunter. I gave this book 3 stars. Becoming Bonnie by Jenny L. Walsh. I gave this book 4 stars. A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. I gave this book 5 stars. And Always by Sarah Geo, which I gave 2 stars. I've made videos for Becoming Bonnie, and also, no, that's it. That's the only book that I made a 60-second book review for. Wow. So I will be giving free synopses here, and then also linking down below to Goodreads so that you can check out these books yourself, and Amazon. We Were the Lucky Ones by Georgia Hunter is a historical fiction novel based during World War II and the Holocaust. The book is inspired by, and I think large chunks of it, the plot is based upon Georgia Hunter's family and their survival during World War II. Her family's survival is particularly amazing and interesting because they're Polish. The things I liked about this book were the incredible scope of the plot and the characters. They spread out across the entire world to try to find a way to survive the Holocaust. There was a particular mother and daughter, incredibly compelling and interesting, and enjoyed following that the whole way through the book. But the broad scope of the plot ultimately also ended up kind of being a downer because there were so many different characters, so many different family members, and they were all spread apart so far. It was really hard for me to focus in on the story because you were constantly being torn at the end of the chapter from one character to another character. So while I did really enjoy parts of the plot, just kind of the way that it was structured, I guess, kind of got to me, and so that's why I gave it 3 stars. Becoming Bonnie by Jenny L. Walsh, I gave 4 stars. I did do a 60-second book review for this book, and I will link that below. But basically, this is the story of Bonnie Parker and how she comes to be Bonnie of Bonnie and Clyde. Not that much is actually known in real life about Bonnie, and so the author was able to respect the details of Bonnie's life fairly easily while also adding a lot of exciting details as well. I gave this book 4 stars because I really enjoyed the way that the author wrote the book. She is a debut author, and I absolutely cannot wait to read more books by her. I'm pretty sure that she has like a sequel to Becoming Bonnie coming out, and while I am excited to read that, I would be even more pleased with like a contemporary book by her, or her writing of like friendships and friends interacting was just one of my absolute favorite parts of the book. Was the relationship between Bonnie and her best friend Blanche. And I would just love to see her write a friendship kind of in like the modern day setting. I think it would be neat. Next, I read A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. I gave this book 5 stars because, oh my lord, oh, this book. I wasn't sure going into this book if I was really gonna like it because I knew that Ove or Ufa, since I think they're Norwegian, he's a grump. He's a grumpy old man, and the book is about this grumpy old man and his interactions with some new neighbors who move into the neighborhood. But I actually ended up really enjoying this book. For one, it is incredibly well written. I would read another Frederick Bachman book in a second. I write quotes down from books that I really enjoy, and I had, I believe, like a full 2 pages of quotes from this book that I just loved. It's definitely a book that I recommend. And last, I read Always by Sarah Geo, and I gave this book 2 stars. Always is about a woman who, after dinner one night with her fiance, bumps into her ex-boyfriend. Fairly common occurrence, but in her case, she hadn't seen her ex-boyfriend in about a decade. He had just kind of gone missing. So when she bumps into him, she's incredibly surprised to see him, but she's more surprised because on top of seeing this guy who she hasn't seen in a decade, he's homeless. When she dated him 10 years ago, he was an incredibly successful businessman, and now, seemingly inexplicably, is homeless. So the book follows the main character as she kind of tries to balance her career, her fiance, her friends, and then also her ex-boyfriend who she's found. And that balancing is basically just her lying to her fiance about where she is and what she's doing because she won't tell him that she's spending time with her ex-boyfriend. At the same time, her ex-boyfriend doesn't really seem to recognize who she is, isn't really able to hold a conversation with her. The whole book just felt bizarre. Reading through the other reviews on Goodreads, I'm definitely not the only one who felt that way. And while there were some things about Sarah Gio's writing that I really enjoyed, overall the book just didn't work for me. Moving on to May. I have 6 books on my May TBR. It's definitely more books than I typically read in a month, but I have quite a few books that I'm in the middle of, and I'm hoping I'll finish this month fairly early. First on my list is Boundaries by Henry Cloud. This is a book that I'm almost finished with. This book is basically how to discipline your children by setting boundaries. I have an 18-month-old son, and while he's still pretty young, I am noticing that I'm having to set limits more and discipline more. I got talking with a couple of other moms that I know, and one of them recommended this book to me and lent it, so I've really enjoyed it so far. Basically, on the back cover it says, it helps you to define appropriate boundaries and consequences for your kids. It has strategies for setting limits while also teaching empathy and compassion. 2 things that are very important in life. On a totally different note, I'm reading I Know What I'm Doing by Jen Kirkman. This is an ARC I received, and when I got it, I didn't know I didn't know that I knew of Jen Kirkman, but I do, and she's hilarious. And so predictably, her book is also really funny. There have been a couple of other books like this that have come out, and I think this book was recommended to me because I reviewed and enjoyed Amy Schumer's book. And so one of the things that kind of got to me during Amy Schumer's book and then also Lauren Graham's book is that they jump around a lot. And this book doesn't do that as much. I'm about 56 pages into the book so far, and the timeline hasn't jumped around very much at all. And so it's been really nice to get like a solid chunk of a story about her life and not have it jump from like one funny experience to another. But so far the book has been really funny, and she does have some really interesting stories to tell. One of my favorites so far was when her cell phone was stolen, which is awful. There were texts on the cell phone that she didn't really want anyone to see. The person who had her phone basically held it hostage and wanted $5,000 for her phone. Even though the text messages weren't like particularly illicit, it just kind of suggested that she might be having an emotional affair on her husband, which she kind of was. Anyway, while she's in New York City trying to get her phone back, a friend of hers who knows a doorman knew 2 off-duty police officers, and they go with her undercover like in a sting operation to try and get her cell phone back. And so her interactions with the police officers who are trying to be undercover were hilarious, and I can't wait to read more from this book. Oh, stretch. Another book I'm planning on reading this month is ALLIE and B, and that is by Catherine Ryan Hyde. This is an ARC that I was sent, and the plot of this book follows ALLIE and B. I'm about 50 pages into this book so far, and I'm really enjoying it. It's kind of funny. I don't typically read books with geriatric main characters. To follow up A Man Called Ove with ALLIE and B is a little unusual for me, but I'm really enjoying it. B is an elderly woman whose husband recently died, and she's now in charge of all of the things, and she's struggling with that. She falls for a terrible telephone scam, and basically her entire bank account is emptied. So she goes off to try and find another way and place to live, and her path crosses with a girl named ALLIE. ALLIE is a teenager, and she's dealing with some pretty tough stuff for herself. I haven't met the character of ALLIE yet in the book, but I think they become friends and kind of help each other out. This book has really good reviews so far on Goodreads, 37 reviews already and almost 5 stars, so I'm hoping I enjoy it as much as everyone else seems to be. I have 2 audiobooks that I'm hoping to finish this month. One is Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance. I'm about halfway through this audiobook. This book is kind of politically charged, not because of the book itself, but because of how other people have kind of looked at the book and interpreted it. It feels like life is all about that sometimes, and so I try for the most part to avoid books that are that politically charged because reading is a safe place for me. That's just my preference. The Hillbilly Elegy is about a man named J.D. Vance and his youth and adolescence and adulthood, and how he came from being a hillbilly to being a graduate of Yale Law. My favorite thing about this audiobook so far is definitely the narrator, who is the writer of the book. He has a really fun, engaging voice, and I've really just enjoyed listening to him. After that, I'm hoping to listen to Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. Not only have I not read any other Liane Moriarty books, this book is incredibly popular right now, and I just don't usually read books just because they're incredibly popular. See a copy of Girl on the Train that has been on my shelf for a year and a half. But another booktuber who I really enjoy watching, Jade Bookish, I'll link her channel below. She's so sweet, and I really enjoy her reviews, and she had really good things to say about the Big Little Lies audiobook, so I'm hoping I enjoy that too. I started watching part of the series while I was visiting my parents because my mom was watching it, so I'm a little bit familiar with the storyline, but only the one episode that I saw. I would say overall, I really have no idea what this book is about, but I'm excited to listen to it. And last, I'm hoping that I get to an arc that I received, The Rules Do Not Apply by Ariel Levy. If you posted a video review, or if you've read any of the books that I read in April or am going to read in May, please let me know below. I'd love to hear what you thought of the books. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more bookish content. Thanks for watching. Bye.